Good morning. Today is the fourth day of ER, 25th, 24th? No, 25th probably, of April. And we're continuing with our mimer from the Rebbe Moarash on making an ark out of acacia wood. And we saw yesterday, or rather the day before, on Sunday, we saw that the whole concept of making God's will, as it were, is connected to bringing down the not man into the man. That's a crucial statement, because the crown is called not man. The crown, the Keter, is not human in the sense that it's beyond human experience. But each one of us has this. So we're all made out of, are you human? Like your question all the time. Are you Jewish? So the answer to, are you human, is yes and no. My regular life, I'm human. I'm Adam. Everything from crown and down. But the crown and up is not Adam. We said this is a statement that's taken from Samuel, who said to King Saul, when he didn't kill Agag, as commanded, that Hashem himself is eternal and unchanging, because he is not a man to regret. Kilo adamu li'nachem. And the reference here is to the crown. Again, Hashem is like that anyway, but what was he telling him? What good is it for King Saul to know now that God is unchanging and so on? So he says, if you're going to be a king, you have to reflect that as well. So that even, because King Saul said, the people made me do it. They told me that they wanted to sacrifice the flocks to God, they wanted this, they wanted that. But in the end, there was no explanation for why he didn't kill Agag, why he didn't kill their king, the king of Amalek. Why did he leave him alive? So he says to him, because you followed the people, you don't have this quality of not a man. You also have to be not a man. You can't just be a man. And the not a man quality of every person is his crown. And there things are unchanging. And there it's also infinite in the sense that it's beyond the grasp of our rational intellectual powers. So now we add, so this is what we saw in the chariot. Right? The chariot was seen twice. It was seen by Ezekiel. It was more than twice. Every one of the major prophets saw it. It has a description. But three major descriptions are Isaiah, Ezekiel, and Zechariah. All three of them describe the chariot in different ways each time, but it's the same chariot. But the main revelation of the chariot, according to the sages, was at Mount Sinai. They all saw the chariot at Mount Sinai. That's where they took the idea of the golden calf from. It was one of the animals, as it were, one of the angels. And the chariot is an ox, a bull. So why did they see it then? Because what people always see is that they see on the chariot that the chariot is. In every generation it's something else, but in general it's how I serve God. The chariot is what carries me, as it were. But there's an image of a man there. And the image of the man is still what we call man. It's still something that is human. But in order to bring down the infinite into the Torah, that's why you brought this whole topic up, you have to go above the man, to where there's no man, no man's land, if you want. So he says, וכדי להעלות התורה לקשרה באור אינסוף ממש, למעלה מבחינת אדם, כי לא אדם הוא, זהו על ידי ישראל, שבני אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, בחינת האבות איננה מרכבה. He says, only the Jewish people can do this. Why? Because the chariot, especially in the time of the giving of the Torah, was already fulfilled. It was complete. It was whole. How did it become whole? Because of the service of the patriarchs. The forefathers, they had already perfected their chariot, so that we say that they were so nullified to God that all their actions were like the actions of a chariot or a wagon serving the driver. So that was already perfected. Now they see who's the man on top of the chariot. This is what you mentioned on Sunday. The figure that they saw on driving it is Jacob. And so there's an aspect that's above Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The reason they see Jacob there is because he's the culmination of the generations of the patriarchs. And now they're coming to a much higher level, which is what is above ume'al. It says even above the form of the man that you see there. There is also something. There's a heaven. There's something above it. That no man's land is where the crown is, and that's where you take the infinite down into the Torah from. And it says this can only be done by the offspring of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Abraham, Jacob, Isaac, and Jacob, because they've already perfected the chariot. וירושה זו היא לנו מאבותינו, התשוקה והצמאון להיבטל ולהיכלל באור אינסוף ברוך הוא ממש. Because the whole reason that they became a chariot, that they became a wagon, was because of their thirst, their desire that couldn't be quenched to meet godliness, which was beyond. Everything they could do was only within their means. They didn't have the Torah yet. So for them to reach the perfection, their perfection was just to, in all their actions, their natural actions, to serve God. Everything they do is godly. Every action, every word they said, they lived a godly life, completely. But their children, who have now inherited this state, even though they themselves might not have it, each one of them, but in general, right? In general, the Jewish people now have this perfection from an inheritance from their patriarchs. And so the Jewish people can strive for something more. So what they're striving for is for the infinite that is beyond even the Torah. Now, we've talked about this in the past, that it says that God was playing with the Torah, enjoying the Torah, having recreation time, having a fun time with the Torah for 2,000 years before the world was created. You've heard this medrash, right? It's a verse in Isaiah. What does he mean? It doesn't mean that there was time then, that God plays games. What he means to say, this is how it's understood, is that before the Torah was formalized in what we received at Mount Sinai, the Torah was an aspect of God's infinite nature. And so it was not formal in the sense that we understand. It wasn't, it's like one way of saying it is that the letters were mixed up. And that you could play whatever you want with the letters. You could do whatever permutations you wanted and so on. And then God put it together and gave us the Torah in a concrete, orderly form. But he says about the first word, and that's what we already read this, Ana nafshik taviti avit, that I wrote myself into the Torah. What does it mean he wrote himself? He means that even though the Torah is set, the letters are ordered, and the words are separated from one another, and there is a concrete, definite meaning to each word, to each sentence, still, he included all the 2,000 years, as it were, which really represent Chokhmah and Bina, represent the intellect, that was playful with the Torah, and had all the infinite possibilities. All those are still in potential in the Torah. Okay? And that's basically, for instance, if it sounds strange, so when the Rebbe Rayatz the previous Rebbe gave out his last Maimer. So one of the main ideas there is that a keresh is a rectification of sheker, and it becomes a kesher, right? It's the same letters, kuf shin reish, which usually kuf reishin, let's say, is keresh. That's in the order. It means a piece of wood. And it's talking about the beams of the tabernacle, the enclosing beams, the ones that made up the courtyard. And they are a remedy for sheker, for lies, and they become the basis of kesher, which means connection. So what is that? That's shashwei Torah. Because, what do you mean? I can't take it. Imagine somebody would take a word in English and transfigure, transmute, transpose the letters, and say, oh, this is also related to this word. So people will look at me and say, what are you talking about? This doesn't make any sense. But in Hebrew, because it's built on relatively set three-letter roots, mostly. There's also two-letter roots and four-letter roots, but in general, most of them are three-letter roots. So the six permutations, if you have three letters, you can permute them in six different ways. And that's two. That's what you can do, right? You can it's 3 factorial. 1 times 2 times 3, which is equal to 6. So these 6 permutations, we understand that that's what the first word of the Torah is hinting to. Because it says Barashit. Bereshit can be read as he created 6 in Aramaic. What 6? The letters bara, bet, reish, aleph, which mean to create. There's 3 letters, they can be permuted in 6 different ways. And so that becomes the basis of all of creation. That's the whole idea that's floating around. It doesn't really mean that God took letters. There's no letter building blocks. It's not like a Lego. But what it means is that at the root of the entire Torah still sits this concept of shashuim, of joy of Torah, of playing around with it. And when you play around with it, you're discovering the infinite that is beyond the finite. Because the finite meaning is just what it says. It's the literal meaning, the plain meaning. But the whole point of the Torah is that you discover that which is beyond. So that's what happened here when they received the Torah, that they saw that which was above the man on the chariot, and they understood that it's up to us. We now our yearning now is to reveal that no man above, that no man's land. What does it mean? It's no man? Because at first, for a human being, for someone first hearing this way of homiletically or hermeneutically understanding the Torah, it doesn't make sense in the beginning. It's like, what did you just do? I thought the Torah was a rule book. I thought it was a law book. Now you're telling me that there's all these dimensions above it, above the rules that I understand, above the what my intellect at first accepts. It says, yes, that's the infinite within the Torah. And when did we receive this power? At the giving of the Torah. Because when Hashem gave the Torah, He also brought His infinite self into it. He gave us His infinite self also. And He says, how are you going to access my infinite self? By playing with the Torah. You have the Torah, take the Torah as a vessel, like we said. And then when you play with the vessel, it draws down the infinite into it, or reveals it. שאנו נעלה וננסה בחינת אדם, ג' קווים בחינת אדם, ובחינת כי לא אדם הוא. And how do we do this? By elevating the state of man, meaning our intellect, which is divided into 3 axes, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They're the basis, they're the chariot. Abraham, we said, is the axis, the right axis, which is acts of loving kindness. And Isaac is the left axis, and that is the worship of God. Avodah. And then the middle axis is Yaakov, who's usually considered to be Torah itself. So all these need to be elevated above themselves to the no man. Elo Adam hu. ובנו ועל ידינו יומשך גילוי אור אינסוף ברוך הוא שלמעלה מבחינת אדם בעסק תורתנו ועבודתנו בקיום המצוות שהם בבחינת אדם. And so the two have to come together. The 3 axes, they are the regular work. The person acts of loving kindness, that's with man, how we treat others. Worship is how we relate to God, that's the left axis. And the middle axis is engaging in the study of Torah itself, but according to the principles of Torah. By doing these, we rise above the man. But you have to do these actions. This has to be first The wagon has to have working axes and axles and wheels, and there has to be somebody pulling it. All that is the regular work that a person does every day. But the whole purpose of it is to go beyond the man, to go to that which is lo adam, that is not man, in order to bring down the revelation of the infinite. Vezeu anochi Hashem Elokecha. That's what it means, I am Hashem your God. And we said anochi is I wrote myself. What self? The infinite self. I gave you the infinite self. Anochi misha anochi. I am what I am. Not Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh. That's something else. I will be what I will. That's the generative power. Here it's I am what I am. I am the infinite that can't be described even. Anochi misha anochi. It's called the exalted I. Nimshach liot Elokecha Elokim shelcha. I want you to draw this down and make it into what you understand as God. I want you to understand me in the infinite form, not just in the finite. But again, the vessel for containing the infinite is the finite actions that come from Torah and mitzvahs, the way that they are understood. That becomes the basis. So many people, they skip over this. You say, oh, I just want to access the infinite. I just want to see where God doesn't care, where everything is the same, right? Because if God is infinite, black and white is the same, darkness and light is the same, everything is the same. But that's vis-a-vis the infinite aspect of God, where really the finite differences don't make a difference. I mean, it says, in order to get there, you first of all have to perfect the finite revelation. The finite revelation is the chariot, right? In every generation, there was a chariot. There was a way in which to perfect my service of God, my relationship with other people, my engaging with the Torah. There's a way to build this chariot. And you have to build this chariot to go beyond the man that's on it. רק זהו על ידי צמצום דשם הוויה וכולי, כמו שכתוב כל זה בתרגום אונקלוס, בתורה אור, here it is, בדובר ומתחיל זכור את יום השבת, פרשת יתרו, דרוש השני. So he's sending us to learn another essay from the Alter Rebbe in Torah Or. ונמצא כי מובן מאמר הזר שדווקא בזמן שישראל עושים רצונו של מקום, שעל ידי ביטולם ממשיכים להיות לו רצון פרטי, ואז נקרא הארון שבו לוחות העדות, מקור כל התורה נקרא על שמן, ועשו ארון עצי שיטים. So now we have a new understanding of what it means that we create his will, and it all happens by, first of all, perfecting the chariot. By serving him, first of all, through the particular will that he's already revealed to us. And the particular will that he's already revealed to us is what we understand in Shulchan Aruch, that those are the laws of the Torah. And when you follow that, then you become open to accessing what's beyond. And that's when it is then you receive new will. What does it mean you receive new will? What does it mean? First of all, the Torah is named after you. We said, the Torah becomes yours. That's the thing that a person needs to strive to have. The Torah can't remain something that's only separate from me, that I'm only being commanded by it. That's the first stage. The second stage, what he's saying is, the Torah has to become yours, and it's called yours when you access the infinite and bring it down into the Torah itself. Then you have a completely different relationship with the Torah. It's something entirely different. And then it's called by Moshe. That's exactly what we mean. It's called Moshe made the ark. Moshe made the Torah. Moshe is a representative of the lower will here. It's the way we understand Torah normally. And this is much higher. This is when the Torah is called after each individual differently. It's like something new came down. This is not new because again, the vessel is still the same vessel. It's the same words, same laws, everything is the same. But by perfecting that, I'm able to access the infinite, which comes down and invigorates, as it were, everything else, and it sends me somewhere. So it's like almost, that's a famous picture that you see, that the Baal Shem Tov and his students on the wagon, and instead of traveling on the roads, they're like going through the heavens. That's what that image is trying to give. That we're all traveling. It's all the same. It's wagons. You have to perfect the wagons, but when you perfect them, they don't need roads anymore. because you feel like you're flying.
I can go to work now without the car.
What?
I can go to work now without the car.
No, you get into the car and then you fly over the traffic.
No, before the shop.
Okay.